Hey guys, welcome back. This is Oscar G here with OG Construction Project Manager. And in this episode 4, we're going to cover safety. Now, what do we mean by safety? Well, we're going to cover safety in the office as well as out in the field, because as construction project managers, we're going to be out there quite a bit also, not just in meetings, but also checking up on the guys. But let's get started with the safety in the office. So in the office, we also have to keep in mind who's responsible for safety. Now, ultimately, the organization is responsible for everyone's safety, which is why you probably have some training meetings every so often and safety measures. Where's the evacuation plan and things of the sort. And we're going to go over a lot of these things as we go on. So first, we're going to start, like we said, with the organization. They're responsible for everyone's safety, everyone in their organization, the building. Well, unless, of course, they're not the only tenants in the building, in which case, they're just responsible for the staff under them. But then after that, we got to look at the department heads, the department managers. And obviously, in a bigger company, you're going to have more of them, and they should be able to take count of the people that are in their department that day. If someone's absent, didn't come into work, was sick or something, they should know, and they should be able to give an accurate count after the evacuation if that is necessary from the building. Now, after that, you might have a safety captain for the team or the department, and their responsibility is to remind us and keep an eye out for things that are unsafe, and to remind us what we should be doing and how we should be doing things as far as our safety goes, and to remind us, like I said, evacuation plan, fire sprinklers, where the fire extinguishers are, but we'll continue our discussion here. Next, we have the functional managers, which could be a shift manager, could be just the manager of just the people that are in this certain area in this office. If you have cubicles and things like that spread out throughout the floor, the functional manager probably is in charge of just the one area. Like in just the drafters, say in an architecture firm, there's the drafters, you have the actual architects if it's a group, things like that. So the functional manager needs to make sure that they are overseeing everyone, make sure everyone is having safe practices. Now, after that, let's go ahead and discuss the life safety measures. I got my thing here, my list of things to go over so that we don't get off topic. So, like I said, life safety measures. First and foremost, you need to make sure you know where the different parts of the fire alarm are. Whether it's the fire panel, especially us as construction project managers, these are things that we should know out on the job site, especially when we're working inside of existing buildings and also occupied buildings. So the fire alarm consists of audio and visual cues. You will hear an alarm. In the older buildings, you will hear an actual bell. In the newer buildings, they'll have the different audio siren of some type. And the visual cues, they have the strobes, and a lot of devices now have both, are integrated into the same, the strobe with the audio signal. And don't forget exit signs. Yes, exit signs that should have battery backup. Some don't, I know, especially in the existing buildings. A lot of the new stuff is a battery backup and also illumination in the dark for when you have power outages, and in the event of a fire and in smoke, they should have so many lumens so that you can see them if they're starting to fill with smoke. And then we also have to know where we have the fire extinguishers. Usually per code, there should be a fire extinguisher within 75 feet, either of another fire extinguisher or 75 feet next to the next exit, the next closest exit. And the evacuation plan. Now, the evacuation plan, depending obviously where you are in the building, usually you're supposed to have 2 exits to every building at the very minimum. Some of them have a front and a back. You can have a side door. You can go out through, if you have a warehouse or a material storage area, you should be able to have an exit out that way. The big, roll-up doors, those also count as fire exits, I believe, according to code. Of course, they have to be open So I guess it kind of depends, but there should be a man door available at all times. That especially that they are unlocked during business hours. And most of them have the panic hardware, so you can lock it from the outside, nobody can get in, but you can also have the push, and that is a whole another code section that requires so many pounds of force to open the door and whatnot. And of course, once again, as product managers, we usually know all of that, especially with our door hardware. Now from there we will go on to PPE, the personal protective equipment. Now might seem kind of funny we're talking about PPE, especially talking about the office, but say in the manufacturing, not only in the manufacturing, but some generals do, if they have a carpentry area, is that's their that's how they started. Some of them were actually pre-manufactured frames or pre-manufactured walls in their warehouse or in on their floor out in the warehouse area. And in that case, it's especially true. You're gonna need the PPE, and it's usually the usual, probably a safety vest, eye protection. They have to make sure you have to make sure that they are the ANSI, the Z87, I believe, the impact resistant, and the hard hat. Ear protection, that's especially good, especially if you have really loud noises like hammering, using drills. You wouldn't really use a jackhammer inside, but you never know if there's construction going on in your office. You might have something really loud, and you might even need ear protection. So that's part of the PPE for in the office, or like I said, a warehouse area. Now let's go along with gloves. Can't forget gloves if you're depending on what you're doing. Even sometimes if you don't want to get your hands dirty, touching something greasy, things like that. We always want to make sure we have the correct PPE. So one of the last items that we have here is the ergonomics. It's something a lot of people don't think of. And what are not ergonomics? Ergonomics. Make sure your keyboard is within a certain reach so that you're not overreaching. Your wrist is in a certain position, things like that. The monitor isn't too far away so that you have to strain to see it, but or lean forward and have your neck at a weird angle, because then you're gonna get neck problems, back problems. And speaking of back problems, which I do suffer from every so often, my brother-in-law actually has sciatica, and he needs to have a specific type of chair in order to be able to sit and do his work for a prolonged time. And he actually answers phones most of the day, and does customer service. So it's imperative that he has the correct chair, correct height, the back leans so far for him, things like that. But that's a lot of things that some of us take for granted that we don't look at very much every day. So you want to make sure your feet are touching the ground pretty flat. There's back support. Sometimes so I've seen some office chairs don't have the armrests on the side. I think that's more of a personal preference, if anything. So but like I said, you need to make sure that you're comfortable in your chair, and you can be comfortable for a while. Just like when you get a new truck, a new car, sometimes you want to sit in it, see how does it feel. Is the headrest too high? Things like that. The seat's too low. I know some of them do go up and down as well as front and back. But like I said, you want to make sure you have a good chair that is very supportive of the back and when you sit on it. So we talked about the keyboard and mouse. Make sure it's there. Now the other thing you want to keep in mind is the depth of your desk. Now I know most desks are about 24 to 25 inches deep, which is pretty good. You don't have to reach too far. Just like ADA requirements are 24 inches for countertops that have things where you plug in and things like that, because someone in a wheelchair should be able to reach all the way, and 2 feet is usually what they give them. So, and I've seen desks that are 30 inches deep, as long as you don't have to reach all the way across. And some people like the real estate. You want to put plans on the side of your desk. If you have a big L desk or you're in the corner, you want to put the L-shaped desk with a deep enough area to put plans on. Hey, that's your prerogative if you want to do that. But I just want to make sure you're at the correct height, because that will affect where your wrist lands for your keyboard also. So it's not just that one thing. You kind of have to think of this thing as a system. So your chair, make sure you're sitting good. Your desk is a comfortable height for your wrist not to. So otherwise you'll end up with carpal tunnel syndrome, and you know how that goes. And like I said, you want to look at plans, things like that. You're gonna have to reach in order to write things down sometimes. So just want to make sure that you're comfortable for yourself, and you can always ask your organization for a different chair, things like that. And trust me, they're gonna want to do it. It's a small investment to compare to how much it would cost them in workman's comp if they don't comply. Now, with that said, let's go ahead and hop on over and check out what we have going on the job site. All right. So on the job site, one of the most important things that whether it's you as a subcontractor or a contractor, as well as the project manager should be aware of, is that on site for your organization that you have an IIPP. What's an IIPP? It's an injury illness prevention program. And in there, it'll have all kinds of information about the different things that you use, whether it be equipment or any type of tools and things like that, that is specific to the trade that you're in. As for a general contractor, you're probably going to have a lot of stuff just because it involves a lot of things. But like I said, if you're a general contractor, but you were a plumber before, structural steel guy, a framer, drywaller, painter, things like that, you're obviously going to have certain things that that you need to have in your IIPP. Now, an IIPP will be pretty thick. When I had mine, when I had my structural steel company, I mean, I had a thick, like a 4 to 6 inch, probably a 6 inch binder, 3-ring binder that had all this stuff because it was industry specific. So it had to cover reach forks, forklifts, hand tools, different power tools that we used, the scissor lifts, things like that, and especially all of the hand tools that we use and safety precautions when using certain hand tools and the like. Watching out for things for when you're welding. It's just a lot. It's intense, but you're supposed to have one of those on site. How are you going to have a superintendent or a foreman carry that type of thing? Well, the answer is you don't. What you do is you have a condensed version. Now there are companies, and I'll see if I can get some, and they'll be in the link. There'll be links in the description below, if we can, if I can get a hold of any of them right now. And but there are companies that will help you, and they will have a myriad of questions, so that they can really nail down what needs to be in your IIPP. But they will also give you a condensed version of it for your superintendent to have out on the field, or your foreman, whoever's out there, like I said, on the field. And it is imperative that they have all the correct forms needed, whether it be where to take someone in the event they do get injured. They need to go to either some type of clinic or a what do you call it, the urgent care facilities that are nearby, that are nearest to the job site where you're at. Okay, so, and also injury reports, which obviously cannot be filled out every single time that there's an incident because of the severity of some of the incidents, where you have to call the ambulance, and you obviously can't get a statement from the person who got hurt or that was injured. So sometimes those incident reports can be filled out by the supervisor, whether, like I said, be a foreman or a superintendent, and then once the person gets better, then they can have their statement about what happened. And because there's a lot of times when the superintendent is not watching what's going on, he might be busy with something else, another trade. For the general contractors, the project managers that work with general contractors, sometimes we're busy, or the superintendents are busy with something else when there's an injury on another part of the job site, especially with huge project sites. You're going to have issues like that where you obviously, or the superintendent can't get there right away. So we need to have someone fill out an incident report, and that needs to obviously get copied and filed so that the general contractor has something on file, and also the subcontractor can take a copy for themselves. Now, moving on from the IIPP, we also have to consider our own PPE that's on site, our own personal protection equipment. Usually, since we're going to be out there, not doing very much other than observing, maybe talking to a couple people here and there, usually, personally, I will take my vest, eye protection, ear protection, hard hat, boots. And obviously we have pants. I have seen some subs, especially residential and smaller subs that don't do, especially public works. They are on the job in shorts and tennis shoes. And to tell you the truth, I have kicked people off, subs off of my jobs because the guys come ill prepared for their safety. Guys, doing overhead work, even hanging drywall. No eye protection, no hat, no hard hat. I don't want them there because there's that liability there where they might hurt themselves. So you know what? Until you can get your PPE all sorted out, you need to go home. You need to get off of my job site and come back. I will talk to your boss about this. It's easy as that, really. Don't feel bad. It's for the protection of everyone. They won't hurt themselves. You won't be in trouble. And also the organization won't have to put up, trying to resolve a lawsuit because they got hurt. Because your superintendent or yourself didn't tell these people, A, that they need to have the correct PPE, and B, send them home so that they're not there as a liability, even for another trade, for them to get injured because of another trade also. So, like I said, and a lot of general contractors now, when you get to the job site, before you go through the fence onto the site, they'll have a poster. Now, if you guys saw the thumbnail that for the beginning or for this video, you'll notice the guy is pretty much. Oh, actually, I have it here on the screen. Pretty much, the guy he's crouching down, nailing looks like plywood onto some girders of some type. He's got a hard hat, and you can't really see if he has eye protection, but there's something else that I wanted to point out there, because he does have his vest. Looks like he's wearing boots. He's in pants. He has a short sleeve shirt on, which is okay. That is perfectly fine. You just, us as structural steel guys, we prefer the long sleeves, because a lot of times putting up the structural steel is the frame of the building, and so we don't have anywhere to really tuck under to do our job. We have to be out there in the sun a lot of times, especially during the summer when construction, everybody wants everything done. And so we wear long sleeve shirts in order to keep the sun off of us. So, but this guy, he's got his hard hat, he's got the safety vest, wearing pants, he's got his boots. He also has a harness, because per OSHA, if you are anywhere above 4 feet, anywhere 4 feet above the ground, whether you're in a piece of equipment or on a structure, you're supposed to be able to be tied down, which is why he has a harness on. His fall protection. Now, I can't quite tell if he's actually tied down, because if you take a really close look, there are 2 pieces of rope by his boot. So I can't honestly tell if he really is tied down to anything. Okay, now, so going back, that poster usually tells you you cannot come on this job site, as a worker, unless you have your hard hat, you have the safety glasses, you have your ear protection, the safety vest, probably a harness, and pants go all the way down to your boots. And sometimes they will say that your boots need to be, puncture resistant. And I know I think Red Wing Shoes has actually a shoe, not a boot, but a shoe that is puncture resistant. I don't know, but to tell you the truth, for me, I'd rather have that ankle support. And they're usually, non-slip and oil resistant bottoms, at least for the Red Wing boots. I don't know about those other manufacturers. So talking about that PPE that we need for ourselves, hard hat, like I said, hard hat, eye protection, ear protection, because we're not going to be out there, swinging hammers or anything like that. We're usually there for meetings and to check up on the guys. Sometimes I know they have you drop things off. If you're already heading out there, hey, can you take this out to the guys? Yeah, sure, things like that. You might want a pair of gloves to carry in your truck or your car. How about the responsibility out there? Obviously, safety is everyone's responsibility, not just because I'm a worker, hey, that foreman should have been watching me because I might hurt myself. No, it starts from the bottom. You, as a worker, you need to make sure you're safe. Do you really want to take a couple of days off, or even a week, a month, depending on your injury, where all you get is your disability money? Because it's less than what you would be making if you were on the field. So, like I said, safety starts with everyone, from all the way from the bottom to the top. So after that, the laborers watching out for themselves and sometimes even for each other, then you want to look at the foreman or the general foreman, depending on how the structure is or the organization of the trade that's out there, the subcontractor. But the foreman, obviously he needs to make sure that when he sends the guys to do things and gives them the tasks, that they're going to be safe. They're going to be able to do their job safely and as efficiently as possible. So he needs to make sure that everyone's got their PPE on. Don't forget, when you guys are even when you guys are in the scissor lift, in the reach fork, you need to clip yourself in order to, well, maybe not in the reach fork, but when you're in any type of basket, that you tie yourself off. When you get to where you're going, especially with structural steel, we tie off as soon as we get to up there. You never know. If we have a piece of steel that's already up and anchored at 2 points, we will tie off to that beam so that you never know if you move around too fast or too hard, a piece of steel comes, when you're trying to hang it and hits the basket of your scissor lift, it might tip over. If you have time, if you jump, you'll be tied off to that piece of steel that's already anchored down, and there will be no issues. You'll be hanging there until someone comes and gets you, obviously. But it keeps you from laying on the floor. And speaking of which, I've seen way too many times, and like I have actually stood there and looked over because someone, I wasn't paying attention because I was busy with something else, and someone else hops into one of those the basket with the boom lift, right? And they'll take it, and it's 4-wheel drive, so that it goes over whatever you need to, and there's a divot, there's a ditch, something is there, or they'll try to go off like a 6-inch drop from a slab onto the dirt. And if you know what these things look like, there's that long arm with the basket on the end. So now you're sticking out 7, 8, 10 feet from where the wheels go down. That is a freaking lever. It acts like a springboard, and you're gonna go flying out. And I have seen it happen once. Personally, I have seen it happen once. I wasn't actually, like I say, it was actually to my back, and I had to happen to turn around just as it was happening, as someone started yelling. So, not very good. The guy ended up, hurting himself pretty bad. He was out for about 3 weeks. Like I said, you don't want to be out because then you have to go on unemployment. And honestly, do you really want to go through being in pain, for some stupid little thing that you could have spent an extra 5 minutes, to make sure things were clear, you weren't gonna go down something, make sure you're tied off, not even 5 minutes. Sometimes it's just a matter of 5 seconds. And those 5 seconds can be the difference of you going home or going to the hospital in an ambulance, or going home in your car in one piece to be able to come back the next day. Really? I don't think it's that hard of a choice. But some people seem to have that problem. And also the superintendent. Superintendent is in charge of the entire job. Everyone on the job. Make sure the contractors are there, the subs are there, and there's getting work done. But they also need to consider the safety of everyone all the time. Which is why, once again, that poster sitting down on that fence that tells you what you need to have on your PPE. You need to make sure, even as a superintendent, that you're making rounds all the time. And as a project manager, you need to make sure that you're telling your superintendent and making sure that he is out there checking to make sure everyone has their PPE and everyone is working safely. Because the last thing you want is to have a very severe injury or accident happen on your job site where OSHA comes and shuts down the job while they investigate. Because as we know, time is money. If you're on schedule, you're going to make the money that was planned, that the job was going to be, you're going to make the profit that everyone had planned for. If you're shut down, you might even eat into your profits. You might be able to catch up. Don't get me wrong. But if you go over budget, over your time, chances are you're going to go over budget. So if you don't have any type of incidents, don't have any issues, you might even be able to finish your job early and make that extra bonus. One of the other issues that you need to keep in mind is that, yes, you might be on a job site that's actually very open, but you still need an evacuation or escape plan if something goes wrong. Say you're putting up a tilt-up building and something goes on, inside. The four walls are already erected and you guys are working inside. You need an escape plan, not just an evacuation plan, because it'll be all open on the inside except for some columns and things laying around here and there. Maybe some equipment or trucks are going to be inside those four walls. So you're going to need to know where the openings are for you to get out, because chances are there's no doors on any of those openings yet, so for you to get out. So it's not just an evacuation plan, it's also an escape plan. So you need to know where you're going to meet up. And same thing, whoever's the foreman should know how many guys were there for, under him, so that they can take count. Superintendent should be able to ask the different foremen from the different subcontractors, are all of you guys here? Is everyone here? And the superintendent should be able to, if he has anyone else out there from his organization or, working under him, he should be able to make that count very quickly, and just as long as everyone accounts for everyone else. And even the workers themselves can watch out for each other. That shouldn't be a problem either. And another thing that you should be keeping an eye on is to make sure that you have temporary life safety measures. What do we mean by that? You can have, especially when you're doing, the carpenters, you can put a strobe on the wall, an audio device, to make sure that you have some type of life safety measures, like I said, temporarily, while you're working, especially when you're working indoors already. A lot of that fire alarm stuff should already be in there. Even though you're working on finishes, a lot of times, you have to have temporary life safety measures. So even fire sprinklers, you can put up temporary fire sprinklers. And the thing is, with the fire sprinklers, if you don't have your ceiling in yet, they do have, I don't remember if the fire sprinkler subs sell them directly, but I know that you can purchase them somewhere. It's pretty much like a 18 by 18, a piece of sheet metal, or 24 by 24. I can't remember exactly what size. And it has a hole in the middle. I believe it's like 1 5/8 inches, so that, because if your drops are 1.5 inches, or even if they're 1.25 inches, they'll still fit over them. They'll have the hole in the middle, and then they'll have a line cut out to one of the flat sides, so it's perpendicular to that side, so you can bend it open and put it over, because when the fire sprinkler goes off, some of the water comes back up, and actually the ceiling helps to to deflect that water down. But if you don't have a ceiling in yet, obviously the fire sprinkler is not going to be able to do that. It's not going to be able to utilize anything above it. So you put these sheet metal pieces up there just right over the fire sprinkler, so that if and when it does go off, it'll use that piece of sheet metal to deflect the water. And then we have to make sure that our temporary material storage area is organized, kept clean, and nothing is really protruding out too much, where someone can even impale themselves, because that has happened. Rebar, when that's laying around, actually when rebar is being set and things, sometimes it sticks up. We need to make sure you have an OSHA compliant cap on that. Just a little sidebar there. And after all that, we also can't forget, when we have extension cords, because the guys are going to have a lot of extension cords when they're out there using power tools and whatnot, we need to make sure they're, as much as we can, to tuck them out of the way into a corner of a wall or something like that, between the floor and the wall. Just get them out of the way as much as possible, not to have too many hanging cords. If need be, tape them down so that they don't get someone walking by. Sometimes, they won't get caught. And it actually also helps so that the cables don't get, the extension cord won't get, twisted up, and that's just a pain in the ass later on. When you're trying to roll them up after some time, they get all wonky. And also, as equipment training, you need to make sure that the guys know how to use what they're using. Now, given pieces of equipment, a lot of them, whether it be the reach fork or the forklift, they're kind of not self-explanatory, but they got stuff on there. But they still need to know how to use them. And the safety precautions, when you're swinging around, they need to make sure they're always keeping an eye on what's around them, and that's why we need to have equipment training. And you can do this, I'm sure there's companies out there that have videos for the different pieces of equipment. You can go more than likely on some of their websites, and they'll have safety checklists and things like that. But honestly, even if they show up and they don't know how to use it, superintendent or even the foreman should be able to show them how to use it and how to use it correctly. Like I said, to keep an eye out for everyone else. And one of the major points, I think what I'm going to do next week is we'll go over some safety fails, and including people standing on the forks, or even they pick up a pallet and the person stands on the pallet, and they get they're standing on the reach fork and it takes them up to the second story or wherever they need to get something done. Obviously, you're not supposed to do that. It tells you in the safety precautions for using that piece of equipment. I know it does. And it's just very unsafe practice that shouldn't be done. So, and don't forget the power tools. They should know how to use the power tools. If they're part of the union or even another, like the associated general contractors, the AGC, they should have training classes for those types of things. The very basic things, from using an angle grinder to using a circular saw. Even just a regular saw, you never know. The people these days might not even know how to use that, really, which is kind of funny, but kind of not. Let's go to see about the tailgate meetings. Very, very important, because you can get a lot of this stuff done during your tailgate meetings. You're supposed to have a tailgate meeting every 10 days. A lot of times they don't specify whether it's working days or actual calendar days, but I like to do mine every 10 calendar days, which actually pretty much I do if it's up to me. Or when I had the structural steel business, I did it every week. We started the week with that. Every Monday the guys knew we were going to have a tailgate meeting, and as part of that, I had to choose a topic, present it to everyone, make sure everyone understood that what we're talking about, make sure they understand the dangers and safety precautions that need to be taken in order to avoid injury to themselves or to any other person around. And of course, usually on the form you need to have them fill out their name and sign it. You put the date that you had the tailgate meeting, what the topic was about, what you explained. If anybody had any questions, sometimes you can also say, someone asked, clarified, how to use this, what do I do in this specific situation, things like that you can have on your form for the for your tailgate meetings. Okay, now other than the tailgate meetings, and make sure this is not even an option. You need to make sure everyone knows how to correctly use a fire extinguisher. And there are different sizes, but it's all pretty much the same thing. You need to make sure that they know PASS. And I'm sure you know it as a project manager, but we need to make sure that everyone else knows this. PASS is the acronym that they use for using a fire extinguisher. P is for pull the pin. A is to aim the fire extinguisher, but you have to always remember they need to aim at the base of the fire, where the fire is coming from, not the flames on top that you see, but actually at the actual base of the fire. Okay, that's aim. Then the next one is squeeze. Squeeze the lever to get the material out of the fire extinguisher. And then the last S is to sweep. So you're pointing at the base of the fire, you squeeze the trigger. When the material starts coming out, make sure you sweep side to side, still aiming at the base of that fire to make sure you get the maximum coverage with the material coming out of the fire extinguisher. And finally, we want to talk about dailies. Now, as a PM, or even a project engineer, if you're responsible for collecting the dailies from the superintendent, you guys need to make sure that you get those every single day at the end of the day, and make sure that they're there for, even when you go home, you might even want to check just to make sure that they send it, log into your email if you can from the business. But if not, first thing in the morning, you should be looking at your dailies to see what's been going on, especially when you're not there, if you can't go on site to see them. You want to make sure every single day that the superintendent is filling it out, because chances are the next day he'll start to forget things because a job site is busy a lot of the times. So you need to make sure that you're getting those dailies every single day. And you as a PM or even the project engineer reading over the dailies, you need to watch and keep in mind, because it's part of the monitoring process. You're monitoring your project. You can see issues start to come up. If a subcontractor had an issue with something, and whether it was resolved or not, and you can look at it, and then that way you can decide whether you as a project manager need to get involved and take action to solve the issue or solve the problem if it really is a problem. And you can also look and see if you start having what's called scope creep, where there are little things that the owner might be coming by, or someone else, the owner's representative comes, oh, by the way, since you guys are here, can you do this or can you do that? You will see unauthorized, if the superintendent really is good about filling out his dailies accurately, you will begin to see that they're doing unauthorized work. And what I mean by unauthorized is that you as the PM didn't say, okay, yes, we're going to be compensated for that, so let's go ahead. There was a change order, let's do it. Or if the owner's representative said, yes, we'll pay you for this work, I just need you to get it done now while this is open. And that usually can wait a day, or have the phone call from the superintendent so that you can start working on it right away, get material costs and labor costs so you can get the change order out to the client right away. But if that's not the case, you will see it on the dailies that unauthorized or uncompensated work is being done. Now, don't get me wrong, there are some very small things that, it's kind of like quid pro quo. You scratch my back, I'll scratch yours, where, yeah, no, don't worry about it, we'll get it done, we'll catch you on the next one. The owner will be, or the owner's representative will say, yeah, that's no problem. We'll get you on the next one. The next change order, we'll make sure you get paid. You might even get paid faster, you never know. That is understandable. But when it's a constant thing every week, every couple of days, that is just unnecessary. They should be going through the proper channels where they come to you as the project manager and say, listen, we want to make a change. Now, one of the other things that should always be, they should always make sure that everyone is keeping in mind, like I said, is the safety of everyone all of the time. Every single time. So with that, we're going to wrap things up here. Remember, biggest lesson here is safety is everyone's responsibility. From the laborer, your apprentice, journeyman, foreman, superintendent, to you as the project manager and your organization, safety needs to be something that's done all the time, because you don't want your job shut down. And to be honest with you, it's not even a matter of having the job shut down. I always had the philosophy of, you come to work in one piece, no cuts, no scrapes, no nothing, and by God, I'm gonna get you home the same way you got here. You might be tired, you might be a little banged up from the day, here and there, little things, but no major injuries. You're not gonna go to the hospital. Your family's gonna be able to depend on you to put that food on the table every single day. Okay? That should be what drives you to make sure everyone works safely, to make sure that they go home the same way they came into work, all in one piece, and not in an ambulance off to the hospital or in a coroner's vehicle. That's the very, very last thing that anybody wants. So a very, very somber ending. I apologize. But hey, like I said, I think for next week we'll do some safety fails. I'll scour the internet and pick up on some things, some pictures, and we'll go over them. It'll probably be a short one for next time. We'll keep it casual, take a little break here from being very serious, and then we'll get to it after that, all right? So with that, if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and consider subscribing. And until the next time, stay safe, everyone.